Summer's gone, I'm latching on. Don't even know your name, but you're still in my head. Underneath rays of gold, your body oh so close. No, I can't forget, no. When I saw you on the dance floor, oh, I saw you who saw me first. I guess it's history now and I shouldn't care, but it still hurts. I didn't realize the danger, cause you're the end of the rainbow. And the music was so loud, didn't catch your name over this crowd. Girl, you should wear a name tag, cause all I wanna do is to know your name. Girl, you should wear a name tag, that's the only way that I get your name. Girl, you should wear a name tag, it's too important to be your name. People go insane when you walk by. Girl, you should wear a name tag. I need you on the dance floor, 4 a.m. and we go home. I guess it's history now and I shouldn't care, but it still hurts. I didn't realize the danger, cause you're the end of the rainbow. And the music was so loud, didn't catch your name over this crowd. Girl, you should wear a name tag, cause all I wanna do is to know your name. Girl, you should wear a name tag, that's the only way that I get your name. Girl, you should wear a name tag, it's too important to be your name. People go insane when you walk by. Girl, you should wear a name tag. Girl, you should wear a name tag. Girl, you should wear a name tag.
Hello and welcome to this second round of the MAIA Chess Open in Portugal. We had a devastating finish to yesterday's game. Anna played so well, but in the end, the opponent turned out to be a grandmaster for a reason. She was reasonably close to beating her first ever grandmaster in a tournament game. But in the end, he managed to take the win. But new day, new opportunities. And today, Anna is playing an Italian Luigi. You cannot be more Italian than that. Oh, by the way, I forgot in my intro. I am not Pia, and my apologies about that. What to do? Pia is unfortunately sick. I think she has a cold. She should be back for the end of the tournament. But for now, I am the replacement. My name is Jon Ludvig Hamme. I am Norwegian, which Anna seems to have a preference for these days. She's a woman of good taste, and I'm gonna try and guide you through today's game, just as Anna herself arrives at the board with the white pieces today. So that is a good opportunity to get on the score line, get that first win of the tournament, and continue what was a good trend from yesterday. The completion wasn't just there, but the game lasted to past midnight local time. Today is a bit more of a forgiving hour for the chess game. And if she plays to the same standard she did yesterday, I am convinced that we're gonna see a win. Where in Portugal is this? That is a good question. Let me Google that. Because Portugal has quite a few cities, no? MAIA. So it's called the MAIA Chess Open, and that's because there's a play in Portugal called MAIA. It is maybe a suburb just outside of Porto. We're learning some geography today. Opponent is here and game has started. Let's go. Pawn to d4, first move of the game. Anna is very consistent in her openings. She basically always plays the same. That has some advantages in that you're very, very good at the one thing you specialize in, but it can also be a problem at times to be very predictable. Especially if you're playing into complicated variations that your opponent could kind of get some computer analysis and predict what you're going to do. She's playing pawn to d4, pawn to c4. Sensible play with the pawns, taking control in towards the center of the board. Her opponent, Luigi Scarlato, 1766 from Italy. So Anna is a big rating favorite for this game. He goes for the King's Indian. And I am sorry to say that the last time Anna played with the white pieces against the King's Indian, things did not work out very well. She lost against someone I prepared for that game, Alexandra Botes. But seeing as how Anna plays the same opening again, and she still plays this pawn to h3 move. And she always does this. This is quite interesting. I actually, I was doing the preparation for Alexandra for the game against Anna, and Anna always plays this h3 move. And apparently this is like the latest trend against the King's Indian. And one of the ideas is to go very aggressively with the pawn to g4 afterwards. So this is like a super aggressive way of playing, but it's a way of playing Anna has done many times before, and clearly she's comfortable with it. Now that she's choosing to repeat the same opening, even though it was a bit of a less than optimal against Alexandra in her previous tournament in Los Angeles. Although Alexandra did not castle this early. So I think we're already on a different route, because Alexandra had some specific thoughts about if you castle too early, then you could easily become a victim of White's attack with the pawns on this right side of the board. So castling at this point could be a good idea to delay it. Here, though, Luigi has castled, and then this is already quite a bit different to the game Anna lost in Los Angeles. Okay, pawn to e5, a classic forward move in the center, challenging Anna's pawns. So Anna doesn't want to have a trade of these pawns because that would open up for the black rook to potentially point down towards the white king. So if white just tries to develop normally here, that would be a big mistake, as it allows the trade between the pawns, which in turn enables the rook to put immediate pressure in towards the white center. But obviously, Anna is well familiar with the plans in this situation, and she played pawn to d5 pretty much instantly, which is part of the plan with this h3 move, that you want to shut everything down in the center, and after the center has been closed down, then you potentially go with the pawn up to g4. Bishop to g5. Interesting. I know this is a move you often play in the King's Indian, but I find it very difficult to understand why it's favorable for white. You're pointing your bishop in towards the queen, but you're never really interested in making a trade bishop for knight. You're kind of just standing there. Part of the point for white is that you're trying to get black to play the pawn to h6. That would be a big mistake from black, because then after bishop to e3, you get your bishop in a good position. But in addition to that, now when you play queen to d2 next, you're able to attack towards the h6 pawn afterwards. So that's actually considered favorable for white to try and lure this h6 move. But then on the other hand, why would black play that move anyway? Why would you feel the need to chase away the bishop if the bishop isn't really doing much where it is? Although it is doing, I must admit, I am not a King's Indian kind of person. This is not the style of chess that I identify with. But I just made the realization that one of the major accomplishments of this bishop on g5 This is probably very obvious to the people who played this opening, but to me, this feels like I just made a revelation. With the bishop on g5, because you're pinning the knight cannot move without the queen being lost behind. It means that, okay, since the knight cannot move, the knight is well placed. Not being able to move the knight in itself is not an issue, but one of black's major plans in this opening is trying to use this f7 pawn to put pressure in towards white's center. And you cannot get that pawn forward unless you move the knight, and you cannot move the knight unless you deal with this bishop pointing in towards the queen. I think I just learned something. So this is why people like going with the bishop to the g5 square, even though, in my opinion, the bishop is better placed on e3. But you're saying like, okay, I'll go bishop e3 later on. And for now, I'm trying to lure black into going pawn to h6 and then maybe move the knight away, trying to get that pawn forward. But because black was lured into playing this h6 move, white manages to develop their queen while attacking the pawn. Ooh, and this is interesting. Pawn to h6 is played. So basically the entire thing that we just discussed, Anna here, oh, and she's giving her opponent a bit of an eye there. She's looking up at him as like saying, oh, are you sure about that move? Are you sure that was a good idea? She has successfully tricked him. Is that within reason to say? She lured him into playing this pawn to h6 move, but now it still remains to be seen whether that was a major weakness in black's position. Because right now, if you go queen to d2, even though that's the most kind of obvious move to make, it might not necessarily do much because black then makes a counterattack against the pawn in the center. And one of the main ways of defending that pawn is to go knight to d2. But if you go queen to d2, yeah, you're attacking this pawn, but you're also preventing yourself from offering defense to the pawn in the center in the most sensible way. Okay, interesting. This is a big moment already for Anna. So far, she just played all the moves she already knows, but I don't think pawn to h6 was necessarily part of her preparation, because she knows you're not supposed to make that move, but knowing something and actually proving why are two very different things. So now she's going to have to take a bit of a timeout and start thinking about what are the changes in the position as a result of black having committed to this h6 move. And to me, it feels like the main change should be that you're allowed to attack this pawn on h6, but that is not the computer's preference. Computer just wants to go, well, actually, computer wants to go g4, which is very attacking, but it's not shocking in that this is a very typical move to play in this variation, and part of the plan is trying to prevent black from advancing their pawn to f5. This is why we kind of preventively are aggressive with our kingside pawns. Bishop e2. You're right. Bishop to e2 was played. Yeah, so bishop to e2 I find a very strange move. Because if you're going to play this super aggressive variation, it feels weird combining this. The idea of h3, I thought the point of that was to protect the g4 square, to be able to go pawn to g4 afterwards. But she's playing this h3 move and then just calmly developing her pieces. I can't really object to developing your pieces, though. It's a very sensible plan at all levels. Did Anna win yesterday? No, boom, boom. She had a winning position, and then in time trouble, she blundered. She was up 2 pawns, and then she blundered one of them, and she ended up in a situation where she had to give up the second one as well. But even then, it was equal on number of pawns, so we thought it was going to be a draw. But the Grandmaster kind of showed his abilities in the end game, and 20 minutes past midnight, the game ended after more than 60 moves, and Anna lost. It was so tragic. It was pretty sad, I agree. But she seemed reasonably upbeat considering how it happened. I would be. I mean, I was about to say I would break something in my hotel room, but the bar for breaking things in your hotel room has been, yeah, it's higher now than it was when I used to say stuff like that. When I say I would break something, I mean like I would yell and scream and be upset, not actually, create damages for thousands of dollars. How do players stop themselves from analyzing the same line over and over during a game? You don't really. A lot of like chess at some level is about finding the good moves, but then as you become a better chess player, chess kind of evolves to being not necessarily so much about finding the right moves, because you do that kind of by instinct. Then it also becomes a lot about evaluating two different options and saying, okay, in this variation, my knight is placed like this, or in this variation, I win a pawn, but my opponent gets very active pieces. A lot of the calculations at a certain level is about basically just saying, what is better, option A or option B? And when you end up trying to make such decisions, you always have to kind of go through the variation over and over in your head to kind of remind you what you're thinking about. So, at least at my level, I find myself repeating my calculations a lot. But it's because I'm kind of reminding myself where I want to go next and reminding myself what my options are. So there's like different phases of your calculation. First, you're kind of trying to find some good ideas or good continuations, and then comes in my opinion, the difficult part, which is deciding which one of the options you've kind of laid out in your head, which one is the best. They pretend they go down the candidate move tree, but in reality, they go around in circles. Yeah, pretty much, Chris. And if you don't go around in circle, you're probably just very good at the game. Like that would be a super ability to be able to actually spend your time efficiently instead of kind of getting, yeah, distracted by your own, I don't know, head. Whereas Pia is sick, unfortunately, but she'll probably be better soon, and we're hoping that she'll be back for the end of the tournament. She's moving faster today. Will it last? Well, the thing is, I spoke earlier about how Anna always plays the same openings over and over and over. And the pro of that is that she knows her openings very, very well. And she's usually able to play quite quickly at the start of the game. And I mean that was kind of one of the issues yesterday, that the opening was a very random, unique one. So she's had to spend more time in the beginning than what she's used to. But at the same time, her time trouble yesterday, it was not worse than what it has been in the past. So I think the general consensus, based also on what I saw Anna was saying after the game yesterday, is that she played a good game, and she realized herself that she played a good game, and it's just going to be about playing more to that level today, and then she should have very good chances to win. Are both Pia and Anna going to play in the Chess Olympiad? Yes, the Chess Olympiad is actually starting pretty soon. If by pretty soon you'll accept my saying that 3 weeks is actually, it's 2.5 weeks. The 11th of September, Pia and Anna will be representing Sweden in the Chess Olympiad, which is basically like a world nations team competition. And I'm actually going to be doing commentary on that when Pia is unavailable, since, well, she's winning games on the top board. Anna said her dad's playing. Yeah, he made a draw yesterday, Wireman. He was sitting right next to her because he was also playing against a streamer, although I forget the streamer's name. I think he's like Chessbird something or other. Did one of the Botes sisters qualify for the Chess Olympiad? No. The Canadian team was too strong. Alexandra was kind of like number 6 in the draft. It's not really a draft, in the selection. But there's only 5 players per team. Chess nerd. Okay. Chess bird, chess nerd. It had a D in it. And RD even. I was reasonably close. Rhymes, sort of. Thank you. You're so generous. Okay, Anna is about to move. You can tell because she moved her moving hand a little bit. A sure tell sign that something is up. Her opponent is attacking the pawn on e4. She needs to protect it. My instinct, honestly, would be to go knight to d2, to just protect it in that way. But Anna goes queen to c2. Computer believes those two moves are basically equal in strength. But one of my concerns with this queen here is that if black now manages to play pawn to f5, whenever you capture that one, it's going to allow black to recapture with the bishop and attack the queen. Obviously, this is a bit ahead of getting ahead of ourselves. But that could be a thing to look out for. So let's imagine something like the knight has to move somewhere in order to give space for the pawn afterwards. So I'm gonna say knight out here, and then I guess Anna's gonna castle queenside. This is interesting. She hasn't castled yet, so she has the flexibility to choose whether she wants to castle on the opposite flank compared to black's king, or if she wants to go on the same flank. And very often, the way black wins games in the King's Indian is just rushing their pawns forward on this right side of the board, against the king that's already on the right side. But one of the benefits of the way Anna plays these openings, the fact that she plays this h3 move early on, one of the main benefits is that you delay your castling so that you potentially could go to the left instead. And then when you don't have your king on this king side, it means that you're much more free to push the pawns forward and try and attack the opponent's king there. So castle's queenside, that's going to be a big decision for her where she wants to put her king. And frankly, that decision is probably going to come on the next move. Because, she already got the queen out, the bishops, the knights. She did all the other pieces. The king is the only thing remaining. So she has to make this decision next. So knight to h5. I'm actually guessing she's going to castle to the queen side and try to attack. But my issue with this is that after pawn to f5 and then takes, I don't like that the queen is going to be under attack. And this would give black very, very good active piece play. Especially since as the queen moves, black can even continue pushing forward with their pieces. And suddenly there's some uncomfortable threats towards white's position. She often likes to castle queenside. Is that like an actual tendency in her game? That's interesting. It's not super common to castle queenside. There are stats on this that you can look up, but I think castling queenside is like less than 15% of games. And then not castling at all is maybe like 10%. And then 75% is castling to the king side. Because it's so much easier going the short road for the castling, because then you only have to get your knight and your bishop out. Whereas if you want to castle on the queen side, then you have to move the queen in addition to the knight and bishop, which there aren't that many openings that prioritize the development of that side of the board first. How about not castling at all? Is that your scheme, Virtual? I would highly recommend castling. Anna did very well yesterday. Like, unprompted, one of the first things she did was castling. That was very sensible. But I often do commentary on Botes, and she doesn't castle. She always finds some excuse to do something that's more important. But the thing is, there's if you're in a position to castle, it's probably what you should be doing. Why didn't Anna take the bishop and then take on e5? Yeah, so there was an option here with bishop takes knight. In general, so Anna has placed all of her central pawns on the light squares. And since pawns only move diagonally, it means that all of these pawns are controlling light squares as well. It's very important to have your pawns and your bishops working together. So here, the most important bishop in Anna's position is the one on the dark squares, because that bishop does the job that the central pawns are not able to do. So when all your central pawns are on the light squares, then your dark squared bishop is the most important one. And when all your pawns are on dark squares in the center, then your light squared bishop is the super important one. So here, Anna doesn't want to trade this bishop because of its value, given how the pawns are positioned. Nor does Luigi want to give away this bishop, because that's the one taking control over the squares that the dark square pawns are not able to. So then, of course, this could change if Anna actually won a pawn by making that trade. But the problem is, after takes, and knight takes on e5, even though you won a pawn, it's very temporary. And here's something like rook to e8 attacks the knight, and if the knight moves, then the knight can capture on e4. This would just not be a good trade for her because it opens up for the rook towards the white king. It opens up for the black bishop down the entire center. And you would much rather have the black bishop kind of being stuck in behind its own pawn than capturing that pawn and opening up the energy of black's pieces. So it was a good decision not to give away your prime bishop asset. But now when Luigi plays knight to h5, that same concept applies if the knight jumps forward to f4. Moving the knight to f4 is a very good placement for the knight, but it also means that Anna cannot capture that one. Well, if she wants to have success at the very least, because capturing that one would give away a bishop that needs to control the dark squares. And the number two problem with this is that it allows black to move the pawn that was blockading black's own bishop. That pawn is now moved, and the bishop comes in and shows its might through the center. So that's why one of the computer recommendations right now is pawn to g3. Pawn to g3 is a super high class move, in my opinion, because it does two things. Oh, and she played it. Very, very nice. Pawn to g3. Number one, it prevents knight to f4. So it keeps the knight stuck on the side of the board. But then number two is that now if pawn to f5, there's this very interesting knight to h4 move, which opens up pressure from the bishop on the knight. The knight puts pressure on the g6 pawn, and there's also some pressure against f5. So this g3 move does two things at the same time, and that's what you want from a move. You want it to both prevent the opponent's plan while at the same time facilitating your own idea. And now to come back to this bishop to g5 move that Anna played earlier on, she provoked black into playing h6. And what are the issues, the negative things about this h6 move? Well, if you now go f5, knight to h4, there's a very clear illustration of the problem here, because the knight is attacking the pawn on g6, and had Anna not gone with the bishop up and then retreated it back, if she just went to this e3 square immediately, then this pawn would be one step further back, which means the pawn would be guarding the g6 pawn, which in turn means that this knight out on the side to attack on g6 would be way less effective for white. So this goes to show that some of these very interesting nuances, where she moved her bishop up and then had to move the bishop a second time in a row. Normally, as a new player, you're told don't move the same piece more than once in the opening. Here, Anna not only moved the same piece twice in a row, she moved the bishop in the end to a square it could have gone to in just one move initially. So she could have gone bishop to e3 here. And if the game had progressed in the same way, we would have had a similar situation where the only difference is that now after pawn to f5, putting that pressure in towards the center of the board, now knight to h4 does absolutely nothing. And look at the eval bar being very negative to this now, while it's very positive on white's behalf when this pawn is one step further up. And the key thing is that the knight now does not have the pressure against the g6 pawn because the black h pawn was not lured further forward. So I think Anna has found a very nice way of playing in which she kind of justifies her decision or tries to emphasize a situation where black is punished for having played this h6 move. And we're going to get to test this variation now, because after f5, this is a kind of position that could easily become problematic for white. If you take the pawn right now, that would allow bishop takes attacking the queen. We talked about this earlier, how letting the bishop get into the game while attacking the queen, that is one of the big cons of putting the queen on that square. But instead, Anna now can play the very interesting knight to h4 or even knight to d2. I like both of these moves. And what they have in common is that they preserve the tension in the center, but they also start attacking with the bishop out towards the h5 board, h5 knight. He's going for the standard pawn push on the king side. Yeah. So what he's doing is very standard, but because of how Anna has executed her opening so far, there's some interesting ways of non-standard ways of dealing with this, and one of them, maybe my favorite, being this knight to h4 move, because that just really, it fits so well with the luring the pawn to h6. It's possible to promote a pawn to a queen, but also something else. Anyone ever making their pawn a knight or a bishop? So promoting to a bishop or promoting to a rook is super rare, because those pieces have the same abilities as the queen, just fewer abilities. The only situation where you would get a rook or a bishop would be if you're trying to avoid stalemating the opponent. But it's not a common thing to happen. However, the knight is a very unique piece on the board. It's the only one that can jump, sure, but it's also the only one that doesn't have like a linear movement pattern. So the knight has very different attributes than the queen. And there are some situations where you want to go in and get a knight instead of getting a queen. Almost exclusively, though, whenever you get a knight, it's because you want to try and put your opponent's king in check. So it's basically unthinkable to get a knight unless you're saying check at the same time. But getting a knight and saying check is well, it's not common, but it's not shocking. It's linear though, just in a different way. Yeah, I use math terminology to try and pretend I'm smart, but I really don't know what the words mean. It's different. It's not like straight lines. It's not a straight line, is what I was trying to say. Can a grandmaster live by only playing chess and not having a job? Well, I cannot, clearly. That's why I'm here. But there are some people who can make a living exclusively from playing chess, but they're super, super good. They're like top 25, top 30 in the world. How are Anna's chances to win this match? So the rating system actually gives you a percentage of how many points she should score in 100 attempts. So when the rating difference here is a bit under 300 points, Anna has a rating of 2045 and Luigi 1766. with 300-point difference almost, I think Anna would be expected to score about 85 points in 100 games. Which basically means she's a massive favorite to win this game. She also has the white pieces, which is slightly advantageous. So yeah, we're feeling optimistic. Oh, 88%? Blue Barian might be better at math than me. In my defense, I was doing an estimation. Blue Barian may have actually done the math and found a rating calculator. But 85 was a pretty good guess. It's in the neighborhood. Anna's move is knight h4. I like knight to h4. I think that's a good idea to just put that immediate pressure in towards the black pieces. I also like knight to d2. But I would be unhappy if she did something other than moving this knight. 88% is what chat is voting. Oh, okay. I thought chat votes are usually incredibly biased. But are you saying that the Anna chat is actually realistic in their estimation of their heroine's chances? That's very rare for the internet. Hammer, how old were you when you were 1766? I don't recall being 1766, but I was once 1636, 26 maybe, 36. And I was once 1870. And that was, I think that was about the summer of 2002, the fall of 2002 maybe. So I was 12 years old. How can you ensure no one is cheating when leaving the table? Um, I mean, you can't really. But if you start performing way above expected, you're probably going to have people paying more attention to what you're doing when you're leaving the board, or if you're leaving the board extremely often. But we cannot play chess if we're always scared of people cheating, because frankly, it's not very common, despite what you may have heard. Cheating is extremely rare, especially over the board. Yeah, if you didn't allow people to take breaks during the game, it would be, yeah, it would be health. Yeah, it would be ill-advised. Anna is uncomfortable having so much time. Well, her decision right now, this is a very important moment in the game because this is the first time that there's pawn tension that she cannot avoid. So the time she's spending right now, it's not about, oh, Anna spending time, she should get her act together. It's not that all at all. The reason she's spending time now is because this is genuinely potentially the most important decision she's going to make for the duration of the game. Because you need to deal with the tension between the pawns, and you can also start attacking the opponent while, putting your own pieces on the edge of the board, which is technically not the greatest thing, but here you can justify it. It's a big decision. And so it makes sense that she's spending quite a bit of time here. Besides the knight moves, she could also play bishop takes c5. Yeah, yeah, she could. I don't think she should, but she could. There's one instance in which I'm willing to take this knight with my bishop. And that is after knight to d2. If black tries to play pawn forward and attack the bishop, then the bishop has no choice but to make the trade. The difference there, however, is that after the trade, black has given up some of that pressure in towards the light squares on the board. And I feel like I would rather give up my bishop in this situation because it's more closed down, so it's less likely that this black bishop on the dark squares will become a big deal moving forward. So there are some variations where you're forced to making this trade, even though giving a bishop for a knight isn't my favorite thing in the world, let's say. But in some instances, we're forced to do it. But I wouldn't make the trade voluntarily. I would wait until black actually pushes forward. Because if you make the trade here, then black still has that pressure in towards the middle. And if Anna at any point is forced to making the trade between these pawns, well, then black would have this incredible control in the center of the board, and they would manage to push their pawn forward so that it opens up for the bishop to control the dark squares. And when this bishop comes to life, that's when you really miss having a bishop of your own to take those dark squares under control. So I don't like it because I'm scared that at some point black can try and force the trade between these pawns, which would be highly problematic. And I would rather wait until black pushes further on. I want to become 2000 FIDE. What advice can you give me? Study hard. Be open to constructive feedback. Play a lot of internet blitz. Those are my main recommendations. Eat your veggies? Yeah, that was a big part of my Grandmaster title. My 4th grade English teacher, Mrs. Muller, she was so fascinated by me because not only did I eat my veggies, I actively asked for more. At some point when I was like a toddler, I ate so much sweet corn that I actually got sick of it for a couple of years. But I still, my favorite is broccoli and then carrots and onions and bell peppers. So good. Sweet corn is not a vegetable. What kind of universe? That is such an American thing to say. Queen Bee and new task. Please identify your country of origin. Is he kidding or serious? Sweet corn is a vegetable. What are you talking about? Ooh, Knight H4. That's the move I wanted. Oh, you're confusing it with corn. But that's why I specifically said sweet corn, right? It's a grain? Wait, what? Is sweet corn a fruit or a vegetable? It's actually classified by botanists as a fruit. Yeah, but then we're going to have the whole tomato discussion, right? Let's just call it a vegetable and be over with it. Apologize now. I will not apologize. Unless we have a botany professor in chat, I think we're gonna say that the common way of referring to something is referring to tomatoes as vegetables and sweet corn as well. Technically, bananas are a herb. Oh God, let's not get into that. A fruit is a fruit because the part that you eat contains seed. Green beans are a fruit. Oh, come on. I agree watermelon is a fruit. Were we even questioning watermelon? But mice and I'll start saying mice since apparently you're very unhappy about my term sweet corn. But mice and tomatoes are for a good reason colloquially referred to as vegetables. Watermelon is a berry? Oh God. But berries are fruits, right? Oh, are they not? Oh God. You started a war? I'm so sorry, Max. I, one of my priorities in life is peace on earth, and I have now actively contributed against my own goals. Berries are fruit. Oh, thank God. At least we can agree on that. That's a good quote. I think I've heard that one before, Torin. Intelligence is knowing tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. I think I've heard that one before, but it's a good one. Do you think end games are the most important things to know? I mean, when you're starting out, like properly starting out, I think one of the first things you should do is learn how to give checkmate with just a queen and checkmate with just a rook. I think at the most elementary, those end games are super, super important. And then I also think it's kind of important to know how to get a pawn across to get a new queen and a pawn and king, just pawn and king versus king kind of end game. And I actually I say that, but I also uphold my principles. Those are the two end games that I spent a lot of time on with Benji Fishy, when he was in the PogChamps tournaments. So I talked the talk and I stood by my principles. But beyond that, you're not gonna need a lot of end games. I actually had a discussion with a friend today about what kind of end games you need to know. And of course, the discussion arose because of my frustration about Anna losing yesterday in a rook end game. which I feel like at her level, should be like a 2000 rated player should know how to make a draw with two pawns versus two. But it's such an easy thing to say. And then reality is that she's definitely not the only player at her level who would lose that endgame. Because frankly, people don't prioritize endgame knowledge. So there's not a lot of practice you need to do in order to be much, much better than people at your own level. So I think the end game Anna had yesterday is a very good example of something you actually should spend some time learning when you're about, I want to say like 1600 FIDE or 1800 chess.com, thereabout. Because you can get some free points out of just having the very basics of rook endgames. That being said, other than rook endgames, I wouldn't invest too much time. Because rook endgames are the only endgames that are kind of consistently similar to something that may arise in your game. And if you get into a knight endgame, there's not gonna be the knight endgames are way more unique in how they occur. Because you can get a knight endgame with 5 pawns or 3 pawns or with an extra pawn with there's so many different variations of them. But rook endgames are very often the same principles always. You have pawns on one flank or two flanks. And then who is better, the one pushing the pawn on the far side or the one having their pawns working together as a unit? And then you need to know like rook endgame down a pawn. How do you defend if your opponent has an H pawn, G pawn, F pawn? Because it's different based on how centrally located the opponent's pawn is. In general, the more central the pawn, the better the winning chances. Which is part of Anna's problem yesterday. The pawn that remained on the board was an F pawn, which is in towards the center. If her opponent instead had been left with a G pawn, like on the bishop, the file adjacent to the edge, she would have been able to make a draw. And these kind of nuances you need to know, because when you're sitting there at the board, rediscovering the wheel is going to be stressful, if not impossible. So I would. At the lower level, I would get like queens and rook checkmate, and then some pawn endgames, and then at a higher level, one of the key things is going to be rook endgames. I think it also has to do with the rooks are very difficult to get into the game. If you look at any chess game, the rooks are always going to be the most difficult piece to get into play. And that's part of the reason why rook endgames are more common than other things. Because the rooks are so slow to get into the game, it also means that they're less likely to be traded off early. Anna can create new endgame theories real time. Yeah. I think that sounds like a waste of time. I would strongly advise utilizing the fact that you can learn from your predecessors and take some of their wisdom instead of having to do the whole thing yourself. Someone asked in chat about what is the move for black, and I feel like I haven't given this game enough attention really, because what I have been saying is that I wanted her to play g3 and she did, and I wanted her to play knight to h4 and she did, but so I've basically only said that I'm happy with the moves she's made. But this position is actually super interesting because the computer says there's only one move for black to survive at this point. Like the situation is already incredibly tense. And the threats against the pawn on g6 and against the knight on h5 means that there's only one good defensive move here, and it's not an obvious one. It's knight to f4. The knight needs to move to avoid the pressure from the bishop. The knight needs to protect the pawn on g6. The only way to do so is knight to f4, but this is an incredibly tricky move because number one, well, it seems like that knight can be captured by the pawn, but then you have to realize, well, that pawn was actually busy defending the knight, the white knight on the edge of the board. So that's not going to work. But then attempt number two, maybe you take with the bishop, because then after pawn takes back, now there's no knight to defend the pawn on g6. So then knight takes g6, sees the knight attacking the rook, attacking this pawn. You're also kind of putting some pressure on this pawn. And here the computer says black is better, but the reason black is better is because you sacrifice your rook and you go pawn takes pawn, giving up the rook, but creating a situation where, wow, actually computer wants king to capture the knight. But so here Anna would be up a rook to against the bishop, but the problem is that the king is super exposed here in the center of the board, and you could potentially get hit by the queen and the bishop coming in. But that's a super tricky thing to realize when you're sitting there, because you can easily kind of think, well, I'm going to lose that pawn, and then I'm going to lose the next one, and that's going to be an issue. The computer's top choice here. So if he finds this move, then it becomes very tricky for Anna. Because here she has only one move to keep an advantage, according to the computer, which is bishop takes c5, which frankly makes no sense to me. Well, okay, so basically the reasoning behind that is that black's pressure in towards the e4 pawn is so strong that you just have to give up your bishop in order to deal with that pressure. But like we talked about earlier, I am not a big fan of giving up that bishop for the knight if I'm not forced to. But the reason it's more justifiable here than earlier is because earlier we talked about how black may force white into making this pawn trade, which could be favorable. But here black is unable to get their knight back and put pressure against that pawn because they chose to move forward instead of backwards. Still like super complicated, tricky. Computer likes white, but frankly, I think black is pretty good here, if I'm honest. Which means that like this is such a big moment for the game. If he goes knight to f4, then Anna is going to get some very difficult decisions. However, if he doesn't go that move, if he does anything other than that, Anna is going to have a winning position. What about queen to f6? So I'm guessing after queen to f6, there are some ideas of knight takes f5. Like, so this pawn is protecting both this knight and this pawn. So here, I'm making it overly complicated. I wanted to try and go knight takes pawn to try and exploit, that this pawn is busy defending the knight. But actually, if you just go pawn takes pawn, then black cannot recapture because then you would leave your knight undefended. So that's part of the key here, and that's part of why this move was so important from Anna on the previous move, because she gets both the pressure against the pawn and against the knight, and it's very difficult to deal with both at the same time. What are the most prestigious annual chess tournaments in order of strength, excluding the World Championship and Candidates Tournament? I mean, I think that would be, you know, a definition thing more, and there's definitely going to be some bias. But I would say Norway chess is quite clearly number one. And then Sinkfield Cup, I mean, of the ones you're listing, I think Norway chess number one, Sinkfield Cup number two, maybe, and then Dortmund and Vacancy. Vacancy is not especially strong, but the Vacancy tournament in the Netherlands in January is one of the most interesting ones, regardless of what's the strongest, because it creates a field with some disparity in the level between the players, which in turn forces the best players to play more aggressively to go for the win if they want to win the tournament. It's also 13 rounds, which means that it's very interesting as a way of seeing how much energy the players have after spending 2.5 weeks in the pretty sad, windy Dutch North Sea village. Calling Wijk a city would be way too much. Village is already generous, I would say. I spent some time there myself, but I didn't do very well, and that may have affected some of my impressions of the place. I also, this was back during the time when I was trying to blog and do some, when chess content was not, nobody knew what a streamer was back in the day, but we had blogs. That's how old I am. And I wrote a blog with my first impressions from this windy, ice cold Dutch coastal city, village, cottage. And I would say what the blog post is called, but apparently I sinned yesterday using non-family friendly language. So I will try to not do that today. But if you search Hammer blog Vacancy, you'll probably be able to find it. He is going to get you in trouble for not being family friendly. I'm sure Pia would forgive me. She seems like the forgiving type. Hastings also has a long-standing tournament where their participants have to freeze. Well, Hastings is basically precisely on the other side of the strait, right? From the Netherlands. So it makes sense that it's equally windy and miserable on both sides of the North Sea. Favorite sci-fi movie? I don't really do sci-fi. I really enjoy the stories that have, you know, some realism in it. I think why would you need to make up universes when the one we have is interesting enough already? I really like The Martian, though. The Martian, I think, is fantastic. But part of the reason why I think it's so good is because of the realism they try to create in something that right now is completely unrealistic, but might actually become a thing in the next 200 years. I also liked Interstellar. The the space era of movies was very good there for a year and a half. The Martian, not a bad answer. You pass. Thank you. I hope they make more films from his books. Ooh, what other things has he written about Bogan? I've actually considered buying the Martian book. The only problem is that I haven't read a page of anything since Agatha Christie face in middle school, when I would sit and not hang out with anyone in recess and instead just sit and read. I was that kid. Hail Mary. Okay, I'm gonna have to Google that. What's that about? Is it also like space exploration? The film is coming out in 2026. It centers on a school teacher turned astronaut. Astronaut? Astronaut? Yeah, that's already sci-fi right there, huh? Actor Ryan Gosling plans to star as Grace. Oh, Grace was the last name. Never mind. I don't know. It doesn't seem as good as The Martian, not gonna lie. Which opening is the best is black against 1d4? It's always gonna depend on your own style. And you're not gonna be good enough to understand what your style is until you're like very good. So then you have to trust a coach. But the thing is, coaches have a tendency of just advising you to play the openings that they play themselves. It's very, very difficult to find something that actually suits you and actually hits the strengths of your play. The Martian wasn't a bad movie, but calling it realistic, I mean, realistic-ish, right? At least it's not magic and stuff. They did things that was incredibly improbable, but actually doable. Whereas, you know, Moses parting the seas or uh, Harry Potter doing a Patronus spell is genuinely never gonna happen. So it's the difference between zero and 0.000000001, which, if you ask a mathematician, is basically the same thing. Some of them will say, and then some of them will say that no, there's a very important difference, and then they're going to come in with the limits, and then I'm going to get a headache. But I think there's a difference in my mind. The storm at the beginning was unrealistic. No way it was. That I mean that they managed to connect with the craft that he made was wildly unrealistic. But there being big storms on March seems like a proper thing. What was your best subject in school? It depends on, what level, you know? I was very good at math in elementary school. And then as I got older, I would say, I don't know. I wasn't really super good at anything. I was just good at most things. What's the best way to find out what kind of a chess player you are? The best way is having a strong player advise you on your strengths and your weaknesses. But the problem is, a lot of strong players are not necessarily that good at judging strength and weaknesses because it's a really, really tricky thing to get right. And also, coaches are kind of expensive. And if they're going to make an assessment of you, then you kind of, they need to watch you and the way you think for a prolonged period of time. So you would need to have at least like 5 sessions with a coach where you're explaining your thought processes and looking at some different games you've played and then making an assessment and then finding an opening that suits your style. It's a super tricky thing to do. Super tricky. Is it hard to become a 2000 rated FIDE player without a coach? I mean, I think it's very, very hard without having any input. Uh, but it's definitely possible. And there's a big difference between having a coach you kind of work with once a week compared to having a coach you work with once every 2 months. I don't think you necessarily need to have a coach super often, but I do think it's important to get some feedback on what you're doing and how you can work moving forward and what your weaknesses are from someone who is familiar with your style of play and your tendencies. So personally, I would recommend having some input every once in a while. That doesn't break the bank, but gives some nice insights. Can you have negative elo? I would think so. Um, Anyone else in chat know whether there are people on chess.com with like minus something? The logical thing from a mathematic perspective would be that minus is fine, right? It would be the same as if you just adjusted everyone up 200 points. If someone is minus, 100, and then you adjust everyone up 200 points, then they would be 100. But I maybe for reasons, chess.com doesn't want anyone to feel even worse about 100 is the lowest on chess.com. Okay. Well, then that's an artificial limit In theory, then there should be someone who's worse than 100 but can't get lower because of the limit. I'm like 600, so basically the same as 100. Well, I mean, I don't think you fully understand how much better than a 100 rated player a 600 rated player is. With a 500 rating point gap, you're expected to win like 97% of the games. Okay, maybe like 95, 96. It's like wild. But that same principle can be used for every rating band. Damn it, he found knight to f4. That's a really, really good move from him. It was absolutely the only acceptable move in the position. But now that he's made it, he makes this decision very, very tricky for Anna. I think the logical thing to do here is to capture this knight with the bishop and then capture the pawn on g6. To me, this makes sense because very often you attack a rook, you expect that rook to be moved. And it's very difficult to understand that this position, like, it's difficult to understand how bad this position is for white. Oh wow, you even don't take the knight, you just continue attacking in towards the king. This is actually kind of fascinating. Ah, you take with the bishop. That's clever. Because if you take with the bishop, you can get the rook in afterwards. Yeah, so this kind of thing is super, super scary. But the problem is, if Anna goes into this, what are the chances that the guy realizes that he needs to sacrifice his rook? To be fair, he's a King's Indian player. So King's Indian people, they have a higher than normal tendency to look for the extraordinary. But if Anna here could just convince him to move the rook away and then capture another pawn, then this position should be fine for her. Computer says it's approximately equal. Black is down a pawn, but black has this incredible bishop controlling the dark squares. Yeah, this is a super tricky situation. It's yeah. No, anything other than bishop takes on c5 is actually just very, very scary for her. She needs to take this one and then go bishop to f1 to prevent the knight to capture the bishop. And the benefit of this, if we compare this to moving just the bishop back immediately, the big difference is that by trading bishop for knight first, you're able to prevent knight takes on e4. Because we've gotten to a point where the trades in the center of the board would lead to black having the ability to dangerously attack the white queen moving forward. In this position, for instance, I'm thinking the move g5 is very scary, attacking the knight. And if the knight moves, the queen is actually trapped. It's the most powerful piece in the middle of the board, yet it's trapped. So if pawn to g5, then white would need to take the knight instead. And then we have a very intriguing situation. I'm just putting in some computer moves here. The bishop comes in, attacks the queen. Queen kind of has to get away. Ooh, but then the queen is pointing down on the king. The king moves. And then this pawn can push forward and almost become a new queen. But then bishop takes pawn, attacks the rook. If the rook moves, then bishop in, check on the king. Super, super tricky position. And this is why it's very good for Anna to capture the knight on c5 first, not because it's a trade she desires, but basically because after that trade, whenever black tries to open up in the middle of the board, you can recapture with a knight, have that knight protected by the queen. There's no black knight coming in and trading off, forcing white to kind of lose the grip on the center of the board. And if now pawn to g5, then the knight can move away and the queen is not getting trapped in the center. Like the bishop can come out, try and point down towards the queen, but because the knight is in the way, we can even capture the knight here. And we get some situation like this where white should win with the extra piece because you have a good defensive grip on that area. So wow, Luigi spent 30 minutes on this decision, but it was a great one. Very, very good decision. Time well spent. And now I'm actually thinking something similar is going to happen for Anna. This is previously it was a tough position for black because black only had one good move and it was difficult to understand all the consequences because there were a lot of potential captures. But now, similarly, Anna has the same kind of thing where there's one move that's clearly better than all the others, but it's not obvious, and she needs to traverse some tricky capturing variations to get there. Why does the evaluation give 99.9% accuracy to Anna? Because she has played the game very well so far. So far she's done everything perfectly, but sometimes doing things perfectly means that you land yourself in like a top grandmaster kind of situation. And even if you play perfectly initially, if you then don't have the skill set to continue with that kind of grandmaster play, well then it's actually going to backfire on you. The decisions you made when you had top accuracy may not have been the best ones from a practical standpoint if you don't have the skill to follow up in the right way, if that made sense. Wouldn't Anna have predicted this move as likely and used the past half hour to plan for this already? I think she probably considered the move, but what I would do in similar situations is often that I would take a break when my opponent is thinking. And unless I felt like I was in trouble, I would probably try and conserve my energy because there were so many different moves black could have played that I don't want to spend too much of my own energy before I know their move. So it's an interesting thing about energy conservation uh, against trying to, if you have the ability to be focused for 5 hours straight, then absolutely go ahead and spend that time on your while your opponent is thinking. But the average chess competitor is not that crazy. We're pretty crazy, but not managing to fully focus for 5 hours crazy. Okay. I am basically predicting that Anna is going to take quite some time on this move. I'm going to take a little break and go make myself some tea. Oh, I'm back. Earl Grey. Yeah, someone in chat said Lady Grey. I will agree. Lady Grey is my most common tea of choice. But today I've gone with 4 red fruits. Headset on again. Yeah, the thing is, yesterday you guys kind of bullied me into taking my headset off. And then I got a message from the producer that I needed to get off because Anna wanted to take over the stream. And I didn't catch the message because I had taken my headset off. Mhm. So, yeah, headset on today. Are you sure their fruits could be berries? I actually think some of those 4 red fruits are berries. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what the advertisement says. 4 red fruits tea. Strawberry, raspberry, cherry, and hips. I don't even know what that is in English. So yeah, actually 4 red fruits is basically 4 red berries. Anyone in chat know what hips is? Berries are fruits. Oh yeah, we kind of did that. Red currant? Really? So are you saying that hips is basically the same as whatever it is they call black currant? What does currant mean? Hibiscus. I've never heard of this. Rose ships? Seriously? We have them in our garden. So anything that can grow in Norway shouldn't have that exotic of names, I feel like. Red currant. In German, rote Johannisbeere. French, Groseille à grapes. Grappe. Groseille rouge. It's very common in Norway. I don't know how common it is in the rest of the world. Do you ever eat exotic fruits? I kind of like this. Exotic is a bit of a stretch, but I do like the Piel de Sapo melon. Excellent. I did once try when we were at a training camp in Oman. I tried eating coconut. That was the most awful thing I've ever tasted. I don't know why it's such a popular gimmick to, oh, I'm having coconuts, but it is god awful. Stay away. Have you ever been to Italy? I have. I don't know why I highlighted your message, but yesterday I had to admit that I'd never been to Portugal. So I guess I wanted to talk about some places I actually had been. That being said, I haven't been to the good places in Italy. The only place I've been is Saint Vincent in like the Italian Alps or something for a chess tournament, of course. Coconut is an acquired taste. Well, I mean, I like a bounty as much as the next guy. In fact, I would even say that I like bounties more than the average person. But the thing that's advertised as cocos, cocos, coconut flavor in real life is nowhere close to what you are presented with an actual coconut. Pineapple on pizza is dope. Oh yeah, I also like pineapple on pizza. I don't know if that bans me from Italy. I when I make spaghetti, I crack my spaghetti. I have since found out on TikTok that apparently that's a big no-no. What about banana on pizza? I am happy to say I have never had banana on pizza. That sounds horrible. For Anna, what about long castling? Well, the thing is, so Black's previous move here, pawn to f5, put some massive pressure in the center. Anna ignored that pressure because she was making lots of threats in towards the black position. But now that black has averted the threats she made, the tension in the center is the number one priority yet again. And a move like castling queenside would just be ignoring what is the major issue in this position, which is something like this, where, well, number one, now the queen cannot capture because we didn't escape with the bishop, which is why we wanted to move the bishop away previously. But even if you move the bishop away here and then try and capture this one afterwards, there's a problem in like there are variations where these bishops will both be pointing down towards the white king, and it is somewhat unpleasant to deal with. So right now, Anna needs to. Well, this is why we talked about this bishop takes c5 move, right? It's not a move we want to do, but it may still be a necessity to prevent black's number one threat in this position, which is just crashing through the center of the board. And part of the reason why this e4 pawn is so important, it's not necessarily about the pawn itself, it's also about the square. The king's Indian revolves around black having this bishop that's blocked by its own pawn. One of black's main priorities is trying to get this bishop into life by pushing the pawn forward. How are you going to do that? Well, first you need to remove the pawn that's there to begin with, which is why stuff like this is considered very unfavorable for white, because once you do something like this, you give yourself a situation where black manages to push that pawn forward, opens up for their bishop, and starts putting pressure down towards the queen side where white has the king here, but also just in general opening up through the center of the board. And you don't really want that to happen. You want to keep control of this e4 square so that you prevent pawn to e4, so that you make sure that black's bishop is unable to get a good positioning. So taking on c5, in some way, you can say that, yeah, it's not an optimal move, but it's all about stunting the black bishop. Because by eliminating the knight that had the pressure towards the e4 pawn, makes it more difficult for black to get through, because now we have a queen and the knight working together, seeing as how the knight didn't have to trade off with the black knight, which in turn means that we can stay on this square, and black cannot push their pawn forward. Okay, we gotta move. Ooh, she castles. Okay. Yeah, that is. Yeah, it's just a bad move, but it was a tricky position. This is why the previous move for Luigi was such a big one. Because he went from having only one move that was just actively not losing the game instantly, to being that if he found that move, he would make an incredibly difficult decision for Anna in return. Why can't she take the knight? So if she takes the knight, so her pawn is busy both protecting her own knight and attacking the black one. If she captures the knight, the queen comes forward and takes the white knight. This in itself doesn't necessarily need to be that big of a problem. The problem is that now the white pawn and the black pawn are attacking each other. And as a result of this tension, what's going to happen? Well, it means that black is definitely going to be able to get rid of the e5 pawn, which, if you remember, that was kind of one of the key ways of black getting a good position, because getting rid of that pawn meant getting the bishop on the diagonal being just a tremendous piece in the center. So the problem with the capture isn't technically that you lose the knight, because frankly you took a black knight to begin with. It's just that after the trade of the knights, you cannot prevent that the black bishop gets into the game, because you cannot prevent the trade between these two pawns. Okay. I also would have preferred just bishop back, because I don't like that we're giving away the bishop on the light squares. Although I did say previously that the most important bishop we have is the one on the dark squares. And I said we were supposed to give that one away. Chess is not an easy game. There's no like one very clear reasoning for everything. But in general, I'm fans of trying to keep my bishops in all situations, this one included. If you wanted to castle, I would have preferred the bishop kind of escaping first. And I'm wondering, I'm not sure. I don't know. Because now if knight takes pawn, takes, I don't know what she's planning here if not bishop back to f1. But why would you then keep the bishop here, giving black an extra option of knight takes bishop, if you could have just moved the bishop back, and then after the trades, you could have castled then, and it would have been the same position as what should happen in the game right now. Hmm. Yeah, it's still very very tricky for both players. The position is not as bad as the computer wants you to believe. Especially not because Luigi is 10 minutes down on the clock at a very early stage in the game, and there's a lot of tricky things to calculate still. So we're gonna get Luigi is definitely gonna be in time trouble. Anna, knowing her, probably is gonna be as well. And then it's probably gonna be mostly about who keeps their nerve when low on time. And well, based on Luigi's play so far, he definitely has some experience, but surely no one can match the experience the queen of time trouble has, despite her young age. Do you think you overestimate the importance of bishops relative to other grandmasters? Yeah, I think so. But I more accurately estimate them than 95% of Twitch chatters. It's better to overestimate them than underestimate them. Make it 99%. I don't think it's 99% blank. I've been doing a good job in Twitch chat for the last 5 years, promoting the value of the bishops. You gotta respect the bishops. That's what I say. Give them some of that respect. Do you think that focusing too much on the computer evaluation when analyzing your own games can often lead to bad habits or issues? Um, I don't think it necessarily, well, it can probably lead to bad habits, I suppose. But I think analyzing your own games compared to not analyzing your own games can probably mostly just be a good thing. It's better to train than not train. But I do think analyzing with the computer on your own is not very often not gonna, you're not gonna realize the true problems of what happened in the game. Like, very often I will see someone, well, I said someone, but one person in particular, I will see Alexandra go through her game with the computer and she's going to be like, oh, this is where I made my mistake. And then I'm going to say, no, your mistake was this and that. And this mistake that the computer thinks was bad, that was just a natural consequence of the earlier mistake you made when you misevaluated whatever, you know? And sometimes the computer can tell you what's objectively wrong, but it cannot tell you what part of your thought process you need to correct. And that is something you have to understand yourself. And for many, it's going to take quite some while before you're at the level where you just understand everything the computer informs you. The computer is a much better tool for a grandmaster than for your average chess player. Computer taught me everything I know. Well, that can still be true. But maybe my argument is that with human input, you would have known even more. What are the options for Luigi in this position? Um, Pawn takes e4, knight takes e4, and knight takes e2. One is good, one is okay, and one is bad. Pawn takes on e4 is bad because then Anna can correct her mistake on the previous move, give away her bishop for the knight, but establish herself with this knight in the center of the board, making sure that the black pawn cannot progress, which in turn keeps this bishop in its own little self pawn prison in the center of the board. If knight takes bishop, the difference between this and knight takes pawn instantly is that here, after all of the trades, the black knight no longer being on the f4 square means that the knight is no longer offering protection to the g6 pawn, enabling Anna to capture this one. And well, even though this still looks kind of good for black, it's less good than his main option. And then the final thing in this position, and the move we right now fear, is knight takes on e4. And then after takes, Anna cannot capture this pawn because the queen needs to keep defending the bishop. Anna also probably shouldn't take the knight because after pawn takes knight, queen takes knight on the edge. It's just a trade, but it's a trade in which black manages to get their bishop out of prison, gets rid of the pawn that was blockading the bishop's abilities, potential. And yeah, just a very good position for black. So yeah, knight takes e4. That is the move we fear right now. Undani says Magnus had a very interesting comment about how the new generation are much more calculation focused and how the old generation is more instinct based, and attributed this to the rise of the modern chess engines. Yeah, Magnus has some really good thoughts about chess. He often doesn't act that way, but he's kind of a clever cookie. Do you think blindfold chess helps improving someone's chess skills? Yeah, I do. But there's a big debate. Like, does blindfold chess showcase your chess abilities? Or does it actually kind of make you play better, visualize better? So there's like a hen or chicken or the egg, maybe is the more common debate on that. But my opinion is that practicing blindfold chess will make you play better. It's a very good way of training visualization. I've seen her lose so many games in this setup. Wow. Chris, with the negativity in chat, I have found my brethren. I thought I was going to be all alone with my grumpy self this week, but I have found someone equally grumpy. It's still just a very tense position. The fact that we've literally gotten 2 moves in the last hour is kind of reminding me of a joke I wanted to make yesterday. Like that I've prepared for Anna's games, with well, I hadn't really. I guess that's part of the reason I didn't even tell a joke about it, because I hadn't. Oh, and he makes the mistake. He makes the worst move of the three he could have chosen. Wow. And now the eval bar is going to go straight back up in Anna's favor. But she needs to play bishop takes knight. But on the other hand, it's much easier to make that move now when you realize that after that trade, you'll be able to get a really well placed knight in the center of the board afterwards. This is a great development for Anna. It was a tricky position for both players. Both players made mistakes, but Anna looks to be the one coming out on top. Is that a free pawn? Well, black just captured a white pawn. So it's a trade. You have periods where you lost a lot of rating points without really knowing why. I went from 1700 to 1500 in a month and I don't have any clue why, and it's driving me mad. I mean, I'm at a level where I feel like I know why I'm doing stupid stuff. I'm not happy about it, but I'm like, yeah, I probably should have been practicing more, working more on my openings, that kind of thing. Um, I think for someone who mostly plays chess online, which I'm assuming you're part of that category, I think sometimes it's just fluctuations. You shouldn't think of your rating as necessarily a fixed point, it's more of a range. So even when you have your highest ever rating, it's like, yeah, it's your highest rating ever, but you probably could go even higher, but you're more likely to go even longer. So it's like if you're 1500, you're more like 1400 to 1600, that kind of thing. And your rating will change based on randomness. You having a good day, you having a bad day, your opponent having a good day, uh, all that kind of things. And what I think one of the most interesting things about, well, chess, but also learning in general, is that you don't get to know that you're improving, kind of. No one tells you that because you learned this thing, now you're able to win more against players of this. Like, improvement is a gradual thing, and you can never know the one thing you did to make it click. And sometimes you do a lot of work and you make an effort to get better, but you don't see the results of that effort until like a year afterwards. And then maybe you lost rating while making the effort, which makes you demotivated. But then your rating suddenly climbs. You go back, you lose 100 rating points, but then you win 200 rating points a year later. But then probably you wouldn't have gained that rating if you hadn't put in the effort to begin with, even if the reward was somewhat delayed. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that having good habits and sticking with it, and understanding that there's good times and there's bad times, but effort is rewarded in the long term. I guess that would be one of my best advice. What's the one chess book you read that gave you the biggest improvement? I just did this whole speech about how you can't know what you did that made you a better player. I can't then immediately after say, yeah, no, this book was the best. That made me so much better. I can tell you which books left a big impression on me, but I can't actually tell you what made me better. I really like Seven Deadly Chess Sins, and somewhat related to that by the same author is Chess for Zebras. Um, they're about competitive psychology as seen from and exemplified from chess, which I think is really interesting. And then I also really liked The Road to Chess Improvement by Yermolinsky. I found Seven Deadly Chess Sins quite hard to read. Yeah, it's not the easiest chess book ever, let's say. But when I was a kid, I was reasonably good and I found it very interesting. I thought Anna's rating should go up after the Botes tournament. What happened? I believe she did gain rating in the Botes tournament, but she may have played another tournament as well in which she lost rating. Let me go check the FIDE website. So she lost 15 rating points in the Madrid Chess Festival. Oh, God. The Botes tournament has not been rated. Uh, uh, Questionable organizers. Inexperienced organizers? I don't know. There's no tournament registered from the Botes Invitational. That's not great. Well, I feel like one of the Botes sisters is probably very eager for the tournament to get rated. I'm not going to reveal which, but there's a logic to it. Um, okay, so they said they were going to FIDE rate the tournament, and they didn't manage to do it. That is pretty bad. That is not great at all. Very unimpressive. Maybe it's coming on the September rating list. When was the Botes tournament finished? You have to finish by like July 23rd to get on the August list. Oh, Botes Invitational finished on July 31st. Yeah, never mind. It's not it's gonna be on the next rating list. The one that's published on September 1st. No new chess drama. I'm sure there's gonna be no new drama very soon. There hasn't been a lack of chess drama for a couple of years right now. Anna won like 25 points there. Really? Was it that much, Rainstorm? Well, still 25 points is just. She's so far behind her max potential that, you know, well, 25 points is better than less than 25 points. But at the end of the day, she's going to gain more than 100 points if she's going to accomplish what she wants to accomplish. And even if she just wants to get back to what her rating once was. So I feel like it's coming at some point. No need to stress about it. She should be 2200. Well, that is what I traditionally felt. But after watching her endgame yesterday, I'm starting to think there's a reason she's not 2200. You gotta practice your endgames, kids, or Uncle Hammer is gonna come in bashing you for them. How do you practice them? So you create some like training positions. For instance, you can just use the position that Anna had in her game yesterday, and then you practice playing them both as the aggressor, the one with the well, once with each color against a training partner of similar level. In my opinion, that's the best way. So you find like 10, 15 different rook endgame or like endgame positions in general. Um, and then you practice them against a player of similar strength. And you practice both being the attacker and the defender. She had 35 seconds though. She had 30 minutes when the end game started. Should have been plenty. There's an amazing YouTube short for Pia roasting Anna for her rook end games. Oh god. And then you're telling me she got roasted by her mom and still didn't put in the effort to improve? I smell a new Pia roast in the future, unfortunately. He put in the effort, it's just gonna take time to show. Nades coming back with the call back. It's nice to see someone's paying attention to what we're talking about, at least. What is the key move here? Bishop takes knight. That is the one move Anna needs to make if she wants to, well, if she wants to have an advantage, but also just in general if she wants to get out of trouble. Because right now she cannot capture the pawn on e4 because then the knight, the queen here is busy protecting both the knight and the bishop, and when black comes in, check on the king, queen has to recapture, but then the knight is undefended in the center, so that would just lose the game instantly. The good thing about this mistake her opponent made is that it basically forces her to play the good move. It's like, okay, if you don't take this pawn, you're going to allow black to kind of establish themselves deep inside white's territory. And if you then cannot capture the pawn right now, you're going to have to look for some other way of getting rid of that pawn. And bim salabim, bishop takes c5 is the only logical way of doing that. And it is also the move Anna played. She takes out the defending knight, and now after pawn takes bishop, she'll be able to capture in the center, and without having the black knight creating that pressure. And white's knight is very well placed, making sure that the black pawn cannot progress forward, which in turn means that black's bishop is really bad because it's being blocked by its own pawn. So Anna is back in the driver's seat after this sequence of moves where, yeah, they both spent on average about 45 minutes each on the last two moves, which means we've had 4 half moves, 2 moves from each player in the last hour and a half. So yeah. That's how it goes. The good news is that things will speed up significantly within the next hour. Only took her 15 minutes to make the only move. Well, it took her 15 minutes to make the only good move. But previously, it took her 24 minutes to play the 4th best move. And in a tricky situation like this, it's definitely better to spend time and make the right move than spending no time and making the wrong move, and not to forget spending a lot of time and making the wrong move. And interestingly, you're more likely to make the wrong move when you're spending a lot of time on your decision. And there's actually a logic to that, because once you're spending a lot of time to begin with, that's a tell that you're not comfortable in the situation and you're not understanding, you're not finding something that feels natural, feels good for you. And so if you're struggling to find a good move, you spend a lot of time. But then whenever you spend a lot of time, you're more likely not to find the good move, because the fact that you're spending a lot of time tells us that you're not finding good moves you're happy with. Are chess players good at math? Is there a correlation? I think so. I think there is a correlation, but it has nothing to do with it has nothing to do with what we in chess call calculation, because calculation in chess is has nothing to do with math. It's just I go there, you go there, I go there. It's a decision tree, as my mom, the economist, would say, or has said. Whereas the correlation stems more from, the ability to concentrate, having good, being good at learning, which definitely is a skill, I think. That kind of thing. When is it sometimes advantageous to keep both your bishops? Most of the time, it's good to keep the bishops, but here Anna had to give one of them up because she had an issue with, well, basically just the black pieces invading into her position. So she needed to give up the bishop in order to kind of solidify her half of the board. After bishop takes knight, Anna's opponent has not recaptured. Instead, he's using this opportunity to capture the white bishop with a check on the king before that bishop runs away. So in the space of not very long, we've had an interesting development here where Anna has given away both of her bishops, and it's now 2 knights versus 2 bishops. And right now, black is technically up a pawn, but that pawn will be captured very soon. In fact, it was just captured right now. However, the bishops are often better than the knights, except the problem right here is the pawn on e5. I'm going to do a little thing right now. So we're going to pretend Anna didn't take this pawn. Well, we're going to... how am I going to do this? Okay, I'm just going to do it in a weird way. Bear with me. Okay, so what I have created here via some weirdness is look at this position and then look at this position. And notice the eval bar changing. It's the same position. It's black to move in both instances. But the only difference is whether black has a pawn in the center of the board or not. In this one, the one we're currently at, black is down a pawn, but the computer believes that the position is approximately equal. In this position, which is the current situation on the board, black is not down a pawn, but the computer believes white is almost winning. How do you explain that difference? Well, it's very easy. The pawn on e5 is not just like not good for the black position. It's so bad that chucking it off the board would be actively better for black than having it remain. Because without this pawn, the bishop would be pointing all the way down towards the white king, whereas with the pawn on the board, that bishop is kind of useless. And this is why Anna could afford to give away her knights or her bishops for the knights, because the bishops are not able to exude their normal power because one of the bishops is just shut out of play by its own pawn. And the rook could also get on the open e5. Yeah, that's an interesting add-on as well. This pawn could potentially be blocking, well, a rook or maybe even a queen pointing down through the center. So this pawn on e5, it would be very advantageous for Luigi if Anna were to leave the board right now and he just throws that pawn in the trash and hope she doesn't notice. That would be the optimal strategy right now. That would be cheating. There's a very interesting argument to be made that chess would be more interesting if you were allowed for one of your moves to just remove one of your own pieces. Like they're your own guys if you don't want them there. There's so many concepts in chess that revolves around trying to get rid of one of your pawns. Especially when you're trying to attack the opponent's king, you always push your pawn in front of your rook forward to try and get rid of that pawn and open up for your rook. Imagine a variation of chess where you can just take that pawn off the board. It has a very clear disadvantage because then you lose a pawn. But it's also very nice to be able to start attacks towards the king. It would be a way more enterprising version of chess. Microtransactions to remove or add a piece. Um, I think chess would be a lot of fun if we had some variants where it was more random who could win. I think one of the benefits poker has is that even though it's skill based, a lot of people don't realize how skill based it is because they are capable of winning occasionally against the very, very best. And that, for that reason, poker is much better at getting funded from amateurs than what chess is. Because amateurs believe they can actually beat the best of the best, whereas in chess, everyone knows that's never going to happen. Except that Schwartz guy, but no one really took him seriously. You want chess to be gambling? I want chess to be fun. And if there was like a version, a game mode where you could gain, some kind of tokens, and then you can choose, like, if you're playing a grandmaster, then you use your get an extra queen token. I think that would be hilarious. Or like force your opponent to move a bishop on the next move. I don't know what the tokens would be, but something like that I think would be a lot of fun. I also think chess should have more like team events. Pay to win chess. You didn't have to make it pay to win though. Although, mm, if you're trying to make a buck, it could be tokens you gain through, playing or something, not necessarily buying. But there would be the potential. Nemo made a variant with poison piece. Yeah, poison pawn is a classic. Um, I played that quite a bit. There's also like a variant where you play where one of your pawns is a hidden queen, and then it becomes kind of strategic. And when you reveal your hidden queen, maybe you thought it was checkmate, but it's not checkmate because your opponent has their hidden queen protecting. That's a fun one. And also, Jennifer Shahady, she did roulette chess, where you have to spin a wheel and then your move has to comply with whatever the wheel landed on. And then it's like move a bishop, move a knight, that kind of thing. I'm not suggesting this in a competitive setting. Kung Fu chess is the best. Yeah, is that the one where you can make multiple moves at a time? That's pretty wild. Okay, queen to e8 on the board. Luigi leaves, clearly then believing that he's created some problems Anna needs to solve. I'm very intrigued by the fact. So the thing here is that there were two black pawns under attack. The pawn on g5 and the pawn on c5. They were both attacked. I kind of assumed black had to go pawn to g5 and just kick the knight back and then protect this guy. I thought that was a fair assumption to make. But he's played queen to e8 instead. And that really begs the question, what happens if we capture a free pawn right now? That looks very tempting, but it's not on the computer's list of recommended moves. Okay, takes. Wow. If takes, computer recommends pawn to e4. This is such a good illustration of what we just discussed. Computer is saying not only one pawn, but two pawns. Black's position would be better if you gave up two of your pawns in order to open up for this bishop to really show its might. That's incredible. Black is genuinely down two pawns in this position. And yet the computer thinks it's approximately equal, slightly better for white. But once these bishops start cooking, and then the rooks will be involved as well, you can easily see why the computer likes having some activity for their pieces. That's a really, really interesting. I don't think Anna can resist taking the pawn though. I don't really see it. Computer wants to go pawn g4, which is also such a weird move. I'm assuming the idea with pawn to g4 is that now if pawn to g5, you can go knight to f5. And you sacrifice a pawn, but you manage to capture one of black's most valuable bishops. And you also manage to open up for the rooks to attack down towards the king. But that's a pretty... It's a classy move, but also like super difficult move. Very inhuman. So, yeah, I think she's going to take the pawn. And then the interesting question is going to be whether Luigi realizes that having lost a pawn, he should lose another pawn. And that would be his best chance. Because people are protective of their pawns. On the other hand, Luigi right now has demonstrated a willingness to give away a pawn. But once you have that willingness, maybe you're also willing to give back pawns, or rather capture pawns. Not sure she will find best move g4. I am 100% sure that she's never going to play this move. It makes no sense whatsoever. Well, it makes some sense, but it's like super deep, tricky. It's not going to happen. Knight takes c5. I'm pretty confident that's what she's going to play. It's so tempting to just capture a pawn when you have the ability to do so. Can you bet your chess career on it again? I mean, I got away with it pretty scotch-free though. But yeah, I would stake the most sacred of things when I'm saying pawn to g4 is not going to be played here. G4 also denies bishop to f5. Yeah, but we're not really concerned about bishop to f5 because we can just take that one. So, and then try and invade towards the light squares that the bishop has then left behind. Yeah, no, g4 is just not going to happen, guys. But I mean, that's not a bad thing. Like g4 is like G4 is a where are you hiding your computer engine kind of move. For those preferring a more relaxed interaction with the tournament arbiter, knight takes c5 is a much better move in that regard. Stupid me would just take the pawn. I think you will find, Prexus, that stupid Anna is going to do the same thing. And then you might want to stop calling yourself stupid because it's by far the most logical move. What would stupid Hammer play? Well, that's different, you know, because Hammer, he's such a classy player. I like to think I would be able to find this g4 move. Not sure it's true, but I like to think. One thing I will say about this g4 move is that it prepares rook to e1. If you go rook to e1 now, then you leave your pawn on the side of the board undefended, and black can capture. But if you play pawn to g4, not only does this create a nice pawn sacrifice if black tries to kick your knight, it also prevents the pressure against the h3 pawn so that you can move your rook into the center next. I think I would find g4. I don't think Anna is going to find it. That is the truth. Hammer would take the pawn, confess. I mean, maybe it's a 50-50. I would be tempted by the pawn. There's no doubt about that. Are you a grandmaster? Yes, sir. I am. I used to be one of the best in the Nordic countries. And then, you know, stuff happened. What move are we on? Anna is pondering her 18th move. So Luigi has 18 minutes plus 30-second increments for 23 moves. Good God. Luigi has basically 1 minute per move on average. And Anna is not a lot better herself. They both spent. We had a point in this game where there were 4 moves, 2 from each player, for an hour and a half. I mean, in the player's defense, it was a very, very tricky position. But yeah, as a commentator of chess games, it's a tricky job. Okay, she's taking the pawn. She's got her arm out, circling the black pawn. That black pawn is saying adios to this board. It's being taken out right now. There it goes. She knows it's a bad move. It's not a bad move, though. It's a perfectly okay move. She's up a pawn and has the advantage. But it was not the best move. But the best move was very, very tricky to understand. Hammer was so confident as well. I mean, I know chess. That's kind of the only thing I know. Me being right and being confident that I'm right is not really newsworthy. This is what I do. If black wants to get rid of the e5 pawn, now is the time. Yes. But then he spent quite a few moves in order to get rid of the pawn. Even so, it's still the best move here. Giving away a second pawn, but opening up for the bishop to actually influence the game. Anna has the advantage on the board. She has the advantage in material. She's up 10 minutes on time. Things are looking very, very good for her right now. I don't think they will make it to move 40 regarding the time. Do you mean like that they will not make it because someone's going to lose on time before it happens? Okay, pawn to g5 has been played. Knight under attack. Anna moves the knight back. And now the only good move, according to computer, is pawn to e4. And I am not confident that Luigi will find this move. Because it feels bad giving away a pawn. But the thing is, once you already lost a pawn, losing the second pawn is kind of less of a big deal than losing the first one. Because once you lost the first pawn, you have something to justify. You need to get something going on your behalf. So having lost the first one, it should make sacrificing the second one easier in terms of that you're desperately looking for counterplay to put pressure on your opponent. But I'm not convinced he understands the importance of opening up for his bishop, and frankly also opening up for the queen. Why is it good for him? Well, basically it's just about how it opens up possibilities for all of his pieces. But primarily it's about this bishop on g7. Right now this bishop is miserable due to the central pawn blocking the bishop's path. But if you can get rid of that pawn, it would make the bishop so much more valuable. So in a way, you can say that you give up a pawn to gain a bishop. Because without that pawn sacrifice, the bishop is just worthless. But with the pawn sacrifice, the bishop becomes one of the best pieces on the board. But he needs to move. Like, I don't know why he's leaning back out of the frame. Kind of a relaxed posture, I would say. Maybe the chairs are somewhat uncomfortable, but like, dude, you have 13 minutes left and you need to make another 21 moves. 22 moves. So you gotta look a little bit more stressed if we believe that you're gonna survive this. Well, I guess now we can't actually see him at all. Can I ask the producer, can we move the camera just a little bit to the left to catch, because Anna is leaning forward anyway. We need to see some facial expressions here, if there are any. I suspect Anna is going to be forward leaning for the rest of this game. She's got the posture that you're supposed to have when you're desperately low on time. She knows what's up. Okay, never mind. Guy is back, but he's really hiding his emotions behind the veil of the chess player, the classic chess player goggles. He thinks he's just losing. Yeah, I think so too. I think he doesn't realize that a second pawn sacrifice would actually really bring his pieces to life. I agree with you that he's being very pessimistic about the current situation. And that's kind of what's making both his body language and his lack of moves seem somewhat defeated. Can you explain how you know Anna? Well, when Anna was just a tiny little thing, she used to travel around to chess tournament with her parents. And I remember in particular, there was this one tournament in Greece. I didn't really know too many people there, but obviously being Scandinavian, I knew Pia. So I would chat with Pia during the meals. And then I remember Anna must have been like 7 or 8 years old at that point. So yeah, her mom is somewhat of a legend in chess circles, which means I've seen Anna around at tournaments since she was very little. Should she take the pawn sacrifice with the knight or the queen? Well, so if he plays pawn to e4, which is a big if, computer is actually recommending not capturing the pawn and instead going pawn to g4. which definitely is about gaining control of the f5 square and preventing the bishop from being able to develop. Someone mentioned that as an idea earlier, and I kind of dismissed it, but here the computer is saying it's kind of important. Because the pawn is not going anywhere, and you can capture it later on after you prevented the bishop from pointing down towards the white king. But if you're going to capture it, the computer prefers capturing with the queen because, well, basically now this is going to become a bit of a tricky capture heavy situation. And when we got the captures coming up and the bishops potentially pointing down towards the white king, you're going to want to have the queens off the board. But it's a moot point because bishop to f5 has been played. Double question mark. That is harsh. That is incredibly harsh. Ooh, actually, maybe it's not. So why not g4? G4 has been the computer's suggestion multiple times now. Ooh, this is a cool plan. So he's planning to go bishop to h7. And then if you just continue as if nothing is happening, queen to g6. He's trying to set up the queen and bishop working together, pointing down towards the white king. And if the white king tries to run away, then queen b6 attacks both the knight and the pawn with very, very, very dangerous consequences. Like, computer saying white is better here, but I think in a practical play, white would be in huge trouble. So he's going to move this bishop back and bring the queen up. And then the question becomes, what can Anna do in the meantime? And one kind of natural move is moving the knight to e4. The benefit of that move is that it prevents the black pawn from pushing further forward, which has been a priority for black to activate their bishop. But the issue here is that after takes, the rook can come in and capture the pawn on f2. And then, well, this is better for white, but you're not up a pawn. Computer also really likes this queen to a4. Apparently it's even better, but that seems somewhat advanced. So knight to e4 would maybe be my first instinct. And then second instinct is trying to attack this bishop, either with a knight or the pawn. The computer really likes going here with the knight. In some ways, I find it less logical than the alternative. Because now when you put the knight here, it means that the queen is no longer controlling the e4 square. And we've kind of been going on and on about how important this square is to prevent black from pushing forward and opening up for their bishop pointing down towards the white king. So knight e3 is the top choice by far. But it doesn't really, I don't know, it doesn't make, it makes some sense, of course, but there's some very clear detriments with that move because it gives up the queen's protection in the center. I don't know. The good thing is Anna's going to make a move reasonably soon because frankly, she doesn't have that much time, which also begs the question, where is the opponent? The guy is down to 8 minutes. There's another 21 moves to be made before he gets an additional 30 minutes, and he's not even at the board. And now Anna's she's about to make her move while he's still not there. Oh, look at that. Did you guys see that eye? She's checking to see if he's close by. This is such a classic thing where you kind of try and entice your opponent into making their move quickly by not being at the board. And Anna is kind of just looking, and she finds knight e3. She plays the best move. I don't think that was obvious that it was best, but it was best. So that's a great decision from her. He's going to go bishop to h7 now and try and make that queen and bishop working together. But the problem now with the bishop being kicked away is that when the bishop moves back, Anna gets access to this e6 square. Previously, that square was protected by the bishop, but now that the bishop retreats, the knight can come in, attack the rook, but then instead of protecting the rook, black can go for a counterattack against the king. And this becomes a tricky situation where the computer believes the best move is king to d2, which is, yeah, you have to be pretty cold-blooded to make a move like that. And interestingly, the computer feels knight takes rook is a mistake, not because the queen can start coming in with checks, but because black can go bishop recaptures. The idea being that now if the king tries to run away, the bishop comes in, check, forces the king back. Afterwards, this is a very nice illustration of the bishop's potential power with a checkmate on the board. But Luigi, you got to make a decision, dude. Surely you're planning to go bishop h7, getting the queen and bishop to work together. I don't understand why he's even thinking about this. He basically only has one move to justify his previous one. Feels like he's just going to run out of time. Well, you always get an additional 30 seconds per move you make. So running out of time shouldn't really be a thing, but it's kind of common that you make a mistake that leads to you losing the game because of the time. Speaking of yesterday. But here he's already in a losing position, so he doesn't have anything to lose from just, making a quick move and trying to put the pressure back on his opponent. Okay, bishop to h7 played. We knew you were going to do that all the time, so I don't know why you spent 3 minutes on it. The queen is coming in, but then the question is, will the knight jump in as well? I'm hoping Anna realized that this was what was about to happen. I hope she saw the idea with the queen coming in together with the bishop. Because if that was a completely new idea to her, she's going to need some time to adjust to the fact that black is about to start an attack in a very unorthodox way. Bowser, really? I'm not sure whether that's an insult or not. Why unorthodox? Because it's very uncommon to kind of move your bishop out to the edge of the board and then have your queen working together with said bishop. I guess g4, queen g6, knight f5. That's a good guess. That's a very good guess. I'm not sure it's good, though. well, as in good for Anna. G4. The problem with this idea, I think, is a very human thing to do to try and get the knight to block the queen and bishop working together. The problem is black was kind of expecting to sacrifice this rook anyway. So here, sacrificing the rook makes even more sense because it opens up the path yet again towards the white king. In this position, computer actually believes black has a very, very dangerous attack and that black is kind of fine, which is wild. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense, but it's also not good for white. It allows black to really showcase the effectiveness of their plan. And part of the reason why is that anytime you now try and go with this king to d2 plan, there's no knight here on e3 to keep everything protected. Okay, Anna goes f3. I'm liking this a lot. It's basically the same plan as g4, just a much better version. So instead of trying to go on the attack with the knight, what she's trying to do is to say that, okay, you're trying to go queen g6, you're trying to attack. Well, I'll just put my knight in the center, blocking both your queen and the bishop. Well, both bishops, actually. You're blocking this one, but you're also making sure that the black cannot get rid of the pawn on e5. Okay, giving that a question mark is unreal, because that was a great move, in my opinion. I think the only move for black now is trying to go pawn to e4 before Anna manages to go knight to e4 and just blockade everything. So pawn to e4, only chance for black. Ooh, and then I don't think Anna has seen this, but after pawn to e4, the computer's recommending pawn to f4. That's an insane move, but there's some very clever logic behind it. The idea is that previously this pawn was in the way of the bishop, making sure that the bishop could not be as good as it could be. But after pawn to e4, making the trade would be bad because that allows the bishop to be activated, and then the queen and the rooks and black's pieces are super good here in this position. However, if you play pawn to f4, the idea here is that now this pawn is blocking the bishop's path, so the bishop is not able to contribute in an attack against the white king. And if the trades happen, even though black wins a pawn on this, it also opens up for the white rook to point down on the black king. Pawn to e4 has been played. Great move from Luigi. That was his only chance. And now Anna needs to find a ridiculously difficult strategic pawn sacrifice to neutralize the energy of black's pieces. Pawn to f4 to a human doesn't, like, it almost doesn't register on your radar because you're just thinking, well, that loses a pawn for no good reason. But the important thing here is to keep the black pawn on the board so that the bishop is unable to point down towards the white king. f4 is a crazy good move, but I'm not sure she's going to find it. I don't understand why f4. Yeah, that's kind of a bummer for me, seeing as how I just spent 2 minutes explaining why. I don't know how to explain it differently than this pawn is making sure that the bishop cannot point an attack towards the king. And if black accepts the pawn sacrifice, oh my God, she found it! Oh my God, that is so good. That is a fantastic move. That is spectacular. So good. Okay, she's gonna win this game. Well done. Should be brilliant. I think chess.com only gives brilliant if you sacrifice a piece. A pawn is not good enough. But I think this is more of a brilliant move than the one she played yesterday and got a double exclam on. This was great. And I am very confident in saying that that is the game. That was the key move. And Anna is now winning according to the computer. She has a massive time advantage. But most of all, she doesn't have to be scared about this black bishop pointing in towards the king. She should be scared about this other bishop pointing towards the king. But the thing is, no matter what happens on the next move, she'll be able to get her knight to the e6 square, and then she'll be attacking the rook, but she'll also be attacking the bishop. So she'll be able to take out that bishop if need be. Oh, and yes, also good point. Not only does this block the bishop, it also blocks the queen. And in fact, blocking the queen was potentially even more important than blocking the bishop. The queen now does not have the ability to point in towards white's pieces because of the black pawn in the way, which is why this f4 is such a classy move, especially since on the previous move, you played f3, and there's something super, super good about playing f3 and then f4 in consecutive moves, with both moves being great. And also, someone earlier was asking, should I be doing my analysis with the computer? And here is one of the reasons I think that's not going to be fully great, that you also sometimes need human input, because f3 was a great move and yet the computer gives it a question mark, and then e4 was a great move but the computer gives it a question mark. You had to go this e4 move. It was still the best attempt in the position because partly it's unlikely that your opponent is going to find f4. Although now that Anna found it, I'm starting to think maybe it was more obvious than I thought, but I don't think it was. I kind of like to trust my own judgment. And I thought this f4 move was very, very tricky. I think she can be super proud of having found this. And my point is, I think this was a good move and it got a question mark, and I think this was a good move and it's got a question mark. So sometimes what's good from a human perspective isn't necessarily the same as what's good from the computer. And that's why it's good to analyze your games, but sometimes it can lead to some misconceptions about what you did wrong. Okay, so Luigi has taken the pawn. The position is now equal on number of pawns, but Anna has opened up towards the black king, and now she's getting her knight into the e6 square, where the knight is super well placed, protected by a pawn. It's attacking the rook. It's attacking the bishop. It's going to get help from more rooks getting involved on the next couple of moves. I would be very surprised if this game is still going on in 15 minutes. This has been beautifully executed, and Anna is gonna get her first win of the tournament, and she's gonna feel good. This is the kind of way. This is a way of winning that just it makes you feel good, and well, number one, that's needed after what happened yesterday, but it also means that even after yesterday, Anna still managed to keep some positivity in that she felt she played a good game. Like she felt this was one of the best games she played, even though she lost. She made so many good decisions. She played against a grandmaster, so a loss wasn't the end of the world. But having that confidence in like I'm making good decisions, that's very important. And I'm hoping that um, that now continues moving into the third round. Is round three today? No. So round three is the same time as today, but tomorrow. I don't know if that made sense. Every remaining round of the tournament, except the last one. Oh no, never mind. Oh damn. Oh, they have a morning round on Wednesday. Why would you randomly have a morning round? Okay, but anyway, the first, the second, third, fourth, and fifth round are all at 4 p.m. local time. That's 5 p.m. Central European and 11 a.m. Eastern. I'm sorry for you. Well, Pia hopefully is going to be better by the time we get to the morning round. So many streamers in this tournament. Yeah, there's quite a few. I think Anamaya is playing, and we've seen Lile several times. She's in the chair behind Anna. At some points, we could see her red hair, but she's not sitting at the board right now. Maybe she finished. In this position, how do you feel about playing Rook G1 very fast just to put pressure on the opponent? Uh, I think that would definitely be my choice. Yes. I wouldn't spend too much time on this. Rook to G1 is such an obvious move. Although I would kind of be tempted by going Rook F1 first. Because my my thinking is my thinking is if I go Rook G1, then King H8, I would need to capture the bishop before the bishop runs away. So maybe then there's a benefit to first trading the rooks and then going after the bishop. I don't know. It's so difficult to know what you would do in someone's stead, especially when you have access to the computer lines. Because then you're like, yeah, would I play the computer lines? Maybe. I'm pretty good. I probably would. And then when you sit there during the game, you see so many more things than when you're doing commentary. Because you're so much more focused on the moves. Isn't Queen H2 also good? I think it's a weird priority wanting to attack this pawn on C7. Right now, what I'm thinking is going after the king. But if you go after the king, you better not miss. Or so I'm told. Queen h5. I mean, there's many moves that could try and increase the attack. I guess of the suggestions we've had, Queen h5 makes the most sense to me. But at the same time, you got to be a little bit careful of not leaving your own king undefended. Ooh, Queen h5 is actually a blunder. Bishop takes pawn. Very sneaky. And then if king takes bishop, then the rook will come in, check on the king, while the black queen opens up the diagonal towards white's queen. And, well, when you're in check, you have to defend your king, but then your queen is captured next. Yeah, so let's not do that. But it kind of goes to show that there are some natural moves here that would still be huge mistakes. So you can't think that the game is over just yet. You gotta stay focused. To me, what makes the most sense is just making this trade. I think this makes a lot of sense. And then bring another rook in, why not? King back and then queen here. This makes a lot of sense to me because I'm trying to checkmate the king in the corner using the diagonal. And in order to stop the diagonal, black kind of has to go queen e5. This is the only way of keeping this safe, but then I go knight g4. And I'm trying to get the queen away so that I can give a check. I guess something like e3 takes. Something like this, but then I'm up a pawn, and I also have the more active king to boot. So I think this is what I would go for. But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily feel obvious to go for an endgame when you have such a promising attack as you do right now. So that can be a very, very tricky decision to make. To whether you go into the end game and abandon your attack because you feel the end game is winning as well. There's no way he'll hold the position with 1 minute remaining. I mean, it's unlikely, but Anna's not taking anything for granted, which frankly I kind of like. I don't think you should kind of assume that just because your opponent is low on time and under pressure that they're gonna crack. I think it's good in general to try and find the best moves the whole way and decide the game in that fashion. But I did see Anna's game against Andrea during the Botes Invitational, the chess camp. And there she was spending a lot of time, even when she had an extra bishop for no reason whatsoever. And she actually got herself into time trouble and was down to just a couple of seconds at several points, even when she was just up a bishop. And I don't know if it was the game against Dina that kind of traumatized her, but that is just not okay. You cannot be spending tons of time and creating a pressured situation for yourself when you just have an extra bishop compared to the opponent. So I guess what I'm saying is the principle of spending your time is good, but there is a point where you just gotta believe that you can win with an extra bishop and you avoid getting into time pressure. Okay, we gotta move. The rook pointed down towards the black king. The black king escaped, and now Anna is gonna take the bishop. No. He goes rook to f1. That is the computer top choice. Let's go. I wasn't too big of a fan because this allows black to escape with the bishop. But upon closer inspection, even though the bishop can run away, you can run away, but you can't hide. The black knights are actually controlling all the favorable squares that this bishop could potentially utilize. And black has nothing better than to actually return to base. Although, interestingly, it could actually be a good thing, luring the white knight forward, because now if white does a silly move, then black would be able to go pawn to e3 and open up for both of those bishops to attack down towards the white king. We're going to test this variation because bishop to e5 is on the board. And now anything other than knight to g4 would be a shocker, in my opinion, because you have to, if you don't manage to capture this bishop, you're never going to be able to make threats on the diagonal, and that means the king is going to be very safe in the corner. So you absolutely need to make sure that you take out the bishop. But there are some different ways of doing it. Well, there's not any different ways of doing it. There's one way of doing it. But one way is enough. One way to win, that's all it takes. What about taking the rook first? It makes no sense taking the rook first because that activates black's pieces and allows black to bring more pieces into defense. So that's just not going to happen. She goes knight to g4. And now he has to return with the bishop. And that can be a very difficult thing to do. Going back where you came from, because it feels like an admission of guilt. Yeah, he didn't find it. He goes for the trade of rooks. And now Anna will recapture with her rook. And she's going to have that pressure again. Actually, she might recapture with the queen. Ooh, taking with the queen might be brilliant. Because then, if the bishop returns, you can capture the bishop. And now, since you have the queen faced differently, this is just a big checkmate against the king. Taking with the queen is kind of wannabe, but kind of clever. He takes with a queen. She's playing a good game right now. She made one bad move, castling queenside, but other than that, this has been excellent. Okay, he has to go queen h5 because he has to keep the bishop protected, because he has to keep the diagonal protected. So queen h5 is the only move. And it's not obvious how Anna... Actually, yeah, I'm not sure I like this. I'm not sure what she's doing next. Oh, he went bishop g7. Yeah, that's going to be the game right there. Take the bishop. Game over. Let's go. And he understands what he's done. The reaction. He knows it's game over. Anna with a stone face killer look. No reaction to her opponent's emotions whatsoever. And that's going to be the game. And he resigns with a smile. GG. Oh, he said something very funny. We should have sound on this. That's one thing chess tournaments, especially at the top level, needs to do better. We need the ambient sound. The sound of silence. And the occasional banter. Farsh coming in with 10 gifted subs. So let's go. The celebrations have started. And this could be the start of something great. She got an unfortunate loss against the Grandmaster. She crushes her lower rated opponent. But the real test of whether this is going to be a great tournament or not is going to be whether she wins when she faces an opponent of equal strength. Are there any known smack talkers in pro chess? Well, I mean, Magnus is fairly well known. Geary, Runyon. I mean, chess is full of very interesting characters. But those three in particular, they talk a lot of smack. Nepo, well, Nepo smack talk is a bit, it doesn't have necessarily the positive energy in it, kind of. He's just constantly sarcastic. Okay, while we have the photos of Anna and Luigi discussing today's game, I am told that we have Anna ready to talk to you guys. I remind you that we're currently on a 10-minute delay. So we're going to get back into the real life time and say hi to Anna. And before we do that, I also want to remind you there's another round tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central European time, 4 p.m. local time in Portugal, and 11 a.m. Eastern. And I leave it up to your main attraction today, Miss Anna Kemling.
Well, folks, I guess that's it. Thanks all, and see you tomorrow.
Hello. Hey, can you see me? Hey. I'm so happy we won. Or I won. Not we. I won, I guess. But I'm so happy I won the game. I think this is a good game. I don't know. I was so proud. I was playing so fast in the beginning, but then I had to make some decisions and I spent a lot of time. But I was really trying to play fast, and I ended up having more time than my opponent the whole game. Can we get a clap for that? This is not often this happens in the Anna Kramling world. um, like I had more time than my opponent the whole time. It's crazy. It's insane. But yeah, I think that was more thanks to him than you. Hammer, what is this roasting? What is this? What is this roasting? Why aren't you proud of me, Hammer? Anyways, maybe that is true. He told me at the end of the game that now I owe him a beer and a sandwich because he's really hungry. So I don't know how that's gonna happen, but But anyways, that was really funny. And then he told my dad that I was really good at chess. But I said deal, so I guess I have to get him a beer and a sandwich somewhere. I'm not sure where. But yeah, I'm really happy with the game. I don't know if I made any mistakes. Like, it was really funny because I went in the same car as like him and some other people when I went to the playing hall. And so then he tells me in the car, he's like, Anna, I'm so excited to play you today with the white pieces. And then I say, white? You have the black pieces. And he says, what? I have black? And then I was like, okay, either he's the greatest actor in the world or he hasn't prepared anything. And so then I thought, okay, I'm just gonna play the line that I know the best. And he's not prepared. Either he's a great actor or like, you know. So I thought, okay, let me just play the line that I've played my whole life that I know better than any other line in chess. And let me just not get into time trouble this game, which is why I ended up playing this. I don't play it when I think people have prepared, but I took the chance. um, so, so that was really funny. So yeah, and then I'm not really sure, like, okay, we can look at the game here really quickly because I'm kind of interested, chat. I'm kind of interested. Also, I'm in the analysis room. But look, so we have a board here, and so I'm like, so wait, I'm just gonna like play this out really quickly. So this. I was kind of scared I would get like an Alexandra Botas moment somehow, but yeah, where she just like out prepared me and it was just terrible because I went here. Just want to see really quickly this because this I know all of, and then here I was thinking maybe of going knight d2, but then I went here, and then there's also these moves in between, and then this f5, knight h4. I knew this was good. I was scared of f4, but then I realized because I thought this was so messy, but then I thought I can. Yeah, I thought this was a complete mess. I thought I could go bishop takes knight, pawn takes pawn, knight takes d6. It was an absolute mess. My brain was going like, it was going completely crazy. I was like, this is so much to calculate. But he went here, and I think f4 is a mistake, but it was just a lot to calculate. And then here, like, I was thinking of going bishop takes knight. That was do you want to join? Okay, guys, we have my opponent here. Okay. Hello, Luigi.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
How much did I suck at this game?
No, you didn't suck. I was just, right now I have it. Everyone is telling me the eval bar because they've been watching the game. So I'm asking where everything went wrong for both of us.
Yeah.
But it's better if you and I figure it out together.
I thought I had to take the bishop, not the pawn.
Not the pawn?
No, knight f4, castle, knight takes c2.
Also, here in this position, were you calculating f4?
Yeah.
Because at first I was really scared of f4.
Yeah.
At first I was like, this is crazy. Bishop takes knight, pawn takes g3.
Yeah. Then no, actually I was the line I was trying to make.
Yeah.
It's pawn takes.
Pawn takes there, yeah.
Yeah. But didn't work because I thought knight takes g6, knight here, and then I found king g2 because neither of these worked, I think.
Well, here you have knight takes g3, yeah. But what happens if I see.
Yeah, and then of course bishop takes, pawn takes, bishop f5. So I thought this could work, but there is king d2. Am I tripping?
No, I don't know if you're tripping. Let me see. Here, do I need to take this pawn? What happens if I go instead? This is the position, yeah?
Yeah.
Takes. Because, I was just going to take here. What happens if I take here?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I don't know. Maybe knight takes. I don't think it work. G5.
Ooh, g5. This is hanging, no?
Yeah.
You don't care? Okay.
Pawn takes.
And then now is the moment of.
Bishop f5.
I take here first.
Yeah. Bishop f5.
Now immediately. Then I go back.
No, but yeah, of course.
Takes,
yeah,
and now I
yeah.
can probably maybe even play this to get the
Yeah,
diagonal, or
it
maybe
was-
there's
it was-
something better.
Not... Yeah, so I spent like 10 minutes because I was like lured by 93
Yeah.
king goes
Getting my
F1,
king, yeah.
D1. Then I thought this doesn't work. F4 doesn't work. Then I realized that knight F4 seems good. Yeah, as I told you, knight F4 was like good looking, fancy, but I thought you were better.
Yeah,
You?
yeah, I'm not sure. I think they're saying that my long castles was a mistake. I was happy with that move.
No, I thought you had to take the knight.
On F4?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it looked scary.
Yeah. I agree.
That's why I didn't want to touch anything. I just run with my king.
I thought pawn takes. I could be the best.
I don't know, pawn. I mean, we
bishop takes. I will give you the rook.
Yeah, I can't take with the bishop. Yeah, maybe pawn takes.
Pawn takes, queen takes. Then
Pawn
we
takes
play.
e5 or.
I don't know, because then I play bishop takes e5. So then I really don't know, but I mean it's.
Yeah, we can put it up. Also, I need to ask you. I was telling everyone that when we were in the car, you said that you hadn't prepared, or you said no, you didn't say that. You said that you thought you had the white pieces. Were you acting then?
No, actually, I was like, I was tripping because Alessia this morning
Yeah.
made fun of me. She told me about the cow opening. Yeah, she told
Unless
me.
you sent the remo.
Yeah, Ale. She told me like play the cow opening. I was like, what the? And
You've never heard of it.
And then no, and then she went like E3, D3.
She was showing you it.
I was like, what? What is this?
You've never seen this.
I told you, like I'm sure I'm gonna lose, but not that way. I mean,
No.
That's like at move 5, you already losing. So
Do you think it looks horrible, the cow opening?
I think we will have a blitz game when we both play the cow opening, and then we will see. Right now,
I am streaming. Yeah, I am streaming.
guys, Anna owe me a sandwich and a beer.
You have to hold me accountable for it.
Tell them, like middle game, my stomach was like growling. So I saw Anna's face and was like,
No, I was just focusing on the chess.
I
was just focusing on the chess.
I stood up.
I was trying to play mind games. That's why you were standing
Yeah,
up.
because I was trying. I was looking for food, like doing something. I had. What?
We saw
What?
your match this morning and you lost.
We saw our match this morning.
your
Yeah, if I remember something.
Mario.
This morning they
Yeah.
told me if you play white, you play d4,
Mhm.
and I was like chilling because I play King's Indian,
Mhm.
and then I don't know where did things went wrong
For you?
for me.
Chat,
mean,
where
for
did
you-
things go wrong? Actually, people are saying that my long castles was a mistake, so I guess
Yeah,
it
but
wasn't.
what was?
I think
the-
they're saying that chat, you guys know because you guys have stockfish next to you. Where did it all go wrong for him? I mean, okay, wait, we can.
Yeah, the
Put this up here.
line you played,
Mhm.
I saw that, but I was like, whatever. I have the bishop pair.
Yeah, I was scared of giving you the bishop pair too because it felt anti-positional. It felt wrong that you had the bishop
but
pair.
Then your knight on e4 was like a monster,
Yeah, because I was
and
just trying
your
to.
knight on h4 was
Yeah.
annoying. So one was a monster, one was annoying, and my bishop was setting my pawn. The other bishop was on the starting position, so I was like, what am I doing?
I knew you wanted to play e4 at some point.
Yeah, I thought like whatever. I'm gonna give her one pawn, but I have to open up the position. So I don't know.
Mm.
I don't no.
Oh, he said they were saying that f takes e4 was a mistake.
Yeah. Knight takes c2. The bishop.
You wanted to take here first, and then what happens then? Queen takes.
Queen takes. Whatever.
Is it not gonna transpose?
During the game, I was thinking like, or knight d7 actually. Knight takes g6, or even queen e8. I don't know. But we would have a normal game.
Yeah.
We would have had
A normal
The
game.
English is really.
How'd you say it in Italian?
Avremmo avuto avremmo giocato a scacchi, ok? Avremmo avuto una bella partita, no? Una partita normale. Ok.
Normale.
Normale. No, normale it's normal. Normal. But no, it went crazy.
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
Pazza partita.
You know, in Sweden, we there's one really famous thing in Sweden. Have you been to Sweden?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Well, we're very proud of our pizzas. We love eating pizza in Sweden. But no, don't go. I was You need to answer those to get your sandwich and beer. You're ready. You're mentally ready. Okay, perfect. So, what I was gonna ask you is, what we do in Sweden is that we put curry. Yes.
What?
We put curry, banana, and peanuts on pizza. What do you think about that? Peanuts, you know the nuts? So it's a bit of sweet and crunchiness. It's a bit of sweet and crunchy. It's a bit of both. You need a bit of both in life. He's gone. No? If I gave you that and a beer right now, would you be happy? Instead of a sandwich, you get a beautiful banana curry pizza.
I'm dying of
Hunger? Yes.
If you give me that,
Yeah?
I will die anyway. So no. You know what we can do?
What?
In the hotel.
What?
We can buy all the ingredients. We will do a pizza in the hotel. Alessia bought like a stove.
She bought a stove?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like
What? She has a stove?
yeah. She like came to the day. I was there. She had this box in her hands. I was like,
How is she not busy playing chess? She's going out and buying stoves.
very serious about it. We have tonight pizza.
Pizza?
Like
I mean, okay.
I say.
If we figure out a way of getting pizza, I love pizza. Do you want pizza too, Kostya? Okay, we can all get pizza. It sounds great.
No, pizza. No. I'm gonna choose the pizza.
You're gonna choose the
for
pizza.
you.
What is your favorite pizza?
Banana. Everyone. No. Banana no. Banana it's out of pizza. Margherita. Actually, margherita, it's one of the best pizzas.
But it's so boring. It's so boring. It's so boring. It's just you know what? It's like toast almost. It's
If you
like
want to be
cheese and
fancy,
tomato.
just jump around and don't put banana on pizza. I don't know.
Okay, well, we will convince Luigi to get banana pizza at some point.
No.
Okay, I think with this, I'm going to end the stream, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting. We won, and I'm very happy. It feels wrong to say that in front of my opponent, but now he's here.
Yeah.
So
I know. But pizza with bananas, it's bad.
it's worse than losing. Yeah, it's losing. Okay. So thank you so much for watching. I will be back tomorrow with round 3 of the tournament. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching the game. It was a lot of fun. He's laughing at me. I don't know why, but anyways, this is it. Thank you so much for watching the stream, everybody. I'll be back tomorrow with round 3. We're gonna win again. I have fixed my time trouble problems. I do not fall into time pressure anymore. I am fast now. I am a new Anna Kramling. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you all tomorrow for the next round. I'm very happy. Also, can I just ask, what was my accuracy this game, chat? What was my accuracy this game? Also, the reason I'm rushing is because they just said that there's a shuttle to the hotel, so I'm gonna run. Okay. Okay. I'll take that. I'll take that. Did I make any other mistake apart from long castles? This is my way of analyzing my games. H3 is not a mistake, it's a great move. Kostya, tell him that H3 is a very possible move. It's normale. Normale. Okay. Amazing. Alright, everybody. I'm gonna rate somebody. Don't go anywhere. I'm gonna rate somebody amazing. And the person that is amazing that I'm going to rate is going to be... Oh, wait, I'm failing. What? Raid. It's when you send over people from one stream to the other. Okay, I'm gonna raid Frozen. Sorry, Rosen, not Frozen. Someone type Frozen. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. Is it rating? Is it working? Yeah, there we go. It's working. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Type Frozen in chat when you get there. Bye-bye. I'll see you tomorrow. Same time as today. Don't miss it. Thanks, Hammer, for the commentary. Thanks, people, for watching. Thank you for the support. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, you, for losing. Thanks, everybody, for participating in this. Thanks, mods, for helping out. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.